Third down and 20.
What is going on? Welcome back. Episode 57, 3rd and 20 podcast. My name is Frank Entwistle. We got the main man, the co-host himself, Mr. Steed. Steed, what's going on? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Chilling. Ready to go get this episode rolling.
All right, we actually have some juicy news. A little bit of juicy news. I was seeing on Twitter, there's been links of the Eagles trying to get a quarterback. The most recent link being Deshaun Watson during the draft. There was rumors that the Eagles were trying to trade up to pick 2 to presumably pick up Zach Wilson, who the Jets ended up picking up. And now there was a big old rumor today, and it was unprompted by Adam Schefter. During an interview, he just was like, dude, Eagles are going for Watson. He thinks that the whole legal situation is going to get settled out, and the Eagles are going to be in the market for Watson once the whole thing sorts itself out, Watson's whole legal situation. I don't want to say I'm necessarily shocked, but I think it does come to some sort of surprise that the Eagles right now would be the favorite for Watson, simply because I feel like me and you both feel like this football team, even with Watson, might not be where it needs to be to really make a run. Not saying that they shouldn't go after Watson. It just feels like other teams would be more suited to Watson than the Eagles, especially from Watson's standpoint, where I understand he definitely wants to get out of Houston. The Eagles are better than Houston, but if I was Watson and I had my pick of the mill, like where would I want to go? The Eagles, not that I wouldn't want to go there. They just wouldn't be near the top, I guess. Like, I think that there are a lot of other teams more suited to Watson where it's like, dude, you put Watson on that team, instant contender. And the Eagles, not that they couldn't make the playoffs or couldn't be, because I actually like their roster. I took the over on them, actually. It's just feels like they have a little bit more building to do to really get back to where they were. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's my thing, because I agree with you're saying, where if I'm Deshaun and I do end up getting traded, I want to go to a team that's like instantly like a competitor, like a team that is just a quarterback away from making a deep run in the playoffs, like a team like the Broncos or something like that.
Or even the Giants, right, in their division.
Or the G-Men, but the Eagles, it doesn't. I get wanting Deshaun because you always want to like upgrade your position. Deshaun Watson probably is an upgrade over Jalen Hurts, because when Deshaun's playing, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league, or he has the ability to play like one. It definitely helps your team out. It's just that I feel like the Eagles are more in this rebuild mode where they're, like they had this older roster. Now they got all this draft capital from these trades, and they're trying to pull in some talent and just, structure up the roster and get it younger. So here in a couple of years, they can get back on this competitive edge. So adding in Deshaun Watson's cap on top of that,
that is because the Eagles are in like a weird cap spot. I think the Eagles will be a lot better next year, though. I guess the other thing that I want to bring up is, would we see a Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson swap to a certain extent, where the Eagles have to throw Jalen Hurts and picks onto the deal for Deshaun Watson? Because, I mean, if I'm the Texans, you're looking to get anything you can, and the Eagles do have a lot of picks, but you might be able to pick up a potential franchise quarterback in the deal if you go for Jalen Hurts. So it's like, I guess it's a two-sided question. Is like, if you're the Eagles, are you willing to give up Jalen Hurts? Because if there's any team that values backup quarterbacks, it's the Eagles, right? It's clear as day. That's why they drafted Jalen Hurts. I mean, clearly everyone will bring up they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, the backup quarterback. But I think that is something to consider where, because like from a fantasy standpoint, right, I can imagine that Jalen Hurts owners are pretty scared about the potential of Deshaun Watson being traded to the Eagles. But if Jalen Hurts gets a chance in Houston, it's definitely a worse situation. But nonetheless, he still has the option to become and be a franchise quarterback. And we did that analysis before. And clearly, Jalen Hurts doesn't have the raw talent of someone like Deshaun Watson or some of these other quarterbacks, but we both think that he kind of has the toolkit and the potential to become a franchise quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out, how this whole situation plays out. Before we move on, if it's a Jalen Hurts Deshaun Watson swap, right? Let's just say that that's the deal that the Texans are pulling for.
Yeah.
What picks, what combination of picks or other players do you think the Eagles have to add on?
You would definitely think they would have to give up their next couple firsts, right? Still, even if they give up Jalen, right? Like I would think so.
I'm thinking at
Or does Deshaun
minimum.
Watson's trouble like negate his like costing?
I don't really think it, because if the whole thing gets settled, I really do not think it lowers his price tag. Unless I think the thing that more lowers Deshaun Watson's price tag is the leverage that Houston has in general. The fact that Deshaun literally will not play. I think that that's more of the driving factor, driving his price down potentially than the legal issues. I think maybe the legal issues a little bit, but dude, the
Mhm.
league knows that if Deshaun Watson goes to a team and starts balling out, that this stuff will, not that it'll go away, but I think the situation is kind of similar to Ben Roethlisberger in the effect it will have on him playing and the potential impact on his career from like a PR standpoint. I think that that is being overblown to a certain extent, especially like if nothing really comes out of the lawsuit. Like how much can you really hold that against him? My gut feeling though
Well,
for
yeah,
a
no,
price is, well, like from a GM perspective, obviously you're going to have the fans that are going to clown him and be angry, but dude, you can have that for like fans will find any excuse to be angry at anyone to a certain extent.
yeah,
Obviously, Deshaun Watson, it's more justified than others, but fans are going to be fans. GMs are trying to win football games, right? Because that's their job. And if Deshaun Whitson gives them a chance to win football games, I think that they'll let a lot of this slide, especially given his talent. If we're swapping Hurts and Watson, I think the minimum I am looking for is a first and a second. And I even then I think that that might be a little bit too little. It almost depends on what you think Jalen Hurts is worth. After my analysis, I thought that Jalen Hurts, you'd be hard pressed to argue that he's worth less than that late first round pick, somewhere from pick like 18 to 25, somewhere around there. If you were to plop him in a draft class again,
yeah,
kind of like in
probably.
that Jordan Love range. Um, so if he's worth that, maybe it's three ones and then a combination of other back end picks and pick swaps to recreate, just bump up the value to what it's worth. But it's going to be an interesting thing to play out, to see play out. I really wonder if Jalen Hurts is going to get swapped. That's, I think, the big question for me.
I just wonder if like even if it, it's just rumors right now, even if it really goes down,
It feels like more than just rumors, though. It does feel like more than just rumors from my perspective, just because
I
you
mean, this is the
have,
first we've heard about Deshaun Watson forever, like
yeah.
any kind of like news.
But there have been rumors to the Eagles. It wasn't concrete, but now it's starting to ramp up. And the thing that I think drives it home for me is the fact that the Eagles, we apparently, more rumors though, that they were trying to move up to 2 to draft Zach Wilson. So I think that they are fine with Jalen Hurts, but realize that if they're able to get one of those upper echelon tier one kind of guys, that they're not going to sit around and say, "Oh, we'll take the shot on Jalen Hurts." They're worth, they're trying to get that tier one dude, that guy that they thought they
Yeah.
had in Carson Wentz.
Well, it's interesting because I wonder if this like really jump started because of Dak getting that huge contract for the Cowboys. So they were maybe looking at it like for the next 4 or 5 years, you got to play against Dak, and that's their rival. And maybe they're just not seeing it out of Jalen Hurts, and just know they need a little bit of an upgrade over him to really compete in this division.
I think from a division standpoint, though, if you add Deshaun Watson onto the Eagles, instantly they could win the division. I don't think it's terribly out of the question them winning the division now with how crazy and close this division has been and we believe is. I think the one problem with the Watson is kind of back to my earlier point. Not that the Eagles wouldn't be a good team and wouldn't be a threat in the playoffs. It's just you cannot convince me that this Eagles team is more scary than the Bucks and more scary than the Packers if the Packers are able to kind of keep Aaron Rodgers and the whole band together again. Um, I don't know. I really don't
Even
think
if
that
they
they're at
got
that level.
even if they got Deshaun, like they could win the division, but I still wouldn't pick them to be the favorite,
What
even if
about
they
the
got a
Rams
Deshaun.
too? Like the Rams and the
Yeah, you could
Niners,
put
I
them.
still think they're below them
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
that defense, man. I don't know what I'm going to get out of that defense this year. It was they started to put things together last year at the end of last season, but we saw what happened at the beginning. There's still a lot of holes on their defense. The Eagles, it's if they got Watson, that is a really, really interesting football team, and I'll be
And,
glad that I hit the over when I did.
and we still don't know what we're getting out of the new coach. We
Yeah,
don't know how he's going to play out. If he's the guy, if he's not the guy. Like Deshaun, didn't he just get out of a situation where he didn't like Bill O'Brien, or he got fired, and then like he was mad he didn't have
yeah,
any
but
say
I
in the
feel like
new.
it is hard to compare the Texans to the Eagles. Even though the Eagles last year were a dumpster fire and have had their struggles, they're not on the level of the Texans. At least I don't think
No,
from an
I,
outside
I'm
perspective.
more comparing it to. I think Deshaun wants more. The next team he goes to, I think he wants more leverage. Like he has a say on the team. Like who is hired and who's said. Like I think when it came a big ordeal why he wanted out in Houston was because I don't think he really got a say in their head coach. So if the Eagles trade for him, I don't like Carson Wentz really never had a say there. So like I don't see that front office giving Deshaun Watson that leisure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Texans though they were just it wasn't
I mean, the Texans
it
were
was the
everywhere.
say, and then they trade away D Hop, and then they so many weird moves. It just kind of compounded to the
I mean, it
point
didn't
where
make
I
sense.
wouldn't want to play there either. I would demand a trade for a
Like,
multitude of reasons, not just one. But let's move on. So last week we talked about fantasy football redraft strategies, guys that we wanted to target, guys that we would target in our strategies. This week we're doing the opposite of that. More so just players that we don't want to draft, players that we are actively fading in our redraft fantasy football leagues. We're going to do it by position. We are going to start off with the quarterbacks. And I'm going to go first here, Steve, because I have two kinds of players at the quarterback position that I generally fade. The first being the number one and usually number two quarterbacks. So this year
mm-hmm.
would be Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray, probably, simply because their ADP is too high. If you want that top end quarterback, I would much rather draft Dak Prescott or Russell Wilson as the fifth or sixth quarterback off the board. I can probably wait around, maybe even more, to draft these guys, probably more, multiple rounds, especially Patrick Mahomes. You'll see there will be guys that just take Patrick Mahomes way early because, oh,
Oh
well,
yeah,
I got the best quarterback. And I can wait sometimes 3, 4 rounds to draft that middle pack guy, that Dak Prescott, that Russell Wilson, who really has a very similar chance of putting up QB1 numbers, right? The overall quarterback one.
easily.
Um, so I fade the top two guys, even like the top 3 or 4, because I think that I can just wait, get Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and have just as good of a chance to put up quarterback one numbers. The second player I want to fade are the rookie quarterbacks. Last year, I think was just kind of a bait with Justin Herbert. He had the best rookie season ever. What am I going to gamble on? Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence rewriting history again, or
Yeah,
waiting or at a similar ADP and taking Ryan Tannehill or Matthew Stafford, guys that I know are good and are on good offenses, like teams that are ready to win and produce now.
yeah, I agree with the. the one thing I would do with the quarterback position is definitely fade those upper echelon guys because I see Mahomes and like a Kyler Murray or an Allen going, in the second round or so. But
Second
again,
round.
I've seen it. I've seen this one mock draft. Somebody took Mahomes and was like, "I got Mahomes. Like I'm winning the chip." And
Yeah,
like,
that's ridiculous.
I mean, maybe if you're starting a franchise, yeah,
Well, a
but
dynasty league is different. And even in a one quarterback dynasty league,
yeah.
second round is, I feel like, pretty high in a one quarterback league.
But the reason why you should fade these guys, and I said it a little bit last week, is that, last year you look at the top 10 quarterbacks and fantasy points. The number 10 quarterback was Lamar Jackson. Number one, I'm pretty sure, was Josh Allen. Their point differential was 50 points, right? How many games are you going to win through that differential of points? You're not. Like,
Yeah.
you need to spend your allocation to, like, these other positions. The quarterback position is not going to, Mahomes is not going to win you a game in fantasy. Like, it's not like, yeah, he can put up 25, 30 points, but like, I can also find a guy that put up 20 and just be chilling. But the rest of my roster be very much better because I spent the pick where everybody took Mahomes. I took a up and coming running back. So definitely fade that. I'm never, someone's got to draft him, but I never gotten the big ordeal on that. Also, you were speaking of Herbert and these rookie quarterbacks, and I'm just going to fade Justin Herbert. I think he's due for a sophomore slump. I think a lot of people are going to be really targeting him, thinking like he's the next guy. Like the Chargers are legit this year. Like they figured it out. I'm fading him. I see a sophomore slump in his future.
I'm not fading Herbert. I'm not reaching for Herbert in like that top 3 quarterback ADP, but I think if you get him as 6th quarterback, 7th quarterback, 5th quarterback price off the board, and you got him at a favorable ADP or just like at his price, I don't disagree with that. I really don't. I'm not actively targeting him, but I'm not fading him. Kind of real quick on the rookies. I don't like taking rookie quarterback in my redraft leagues. I really think it's a bait. Their ADP is always inflated because they're the flashy new guys on the block. I'm not doing it. I'm not spending a pick on Justin Fields or Trey Lance when I don't even know if they're going to play, and let alone if they come in, are they going to play well? So
Yeah.
yeah, if I got him at the very, very end of the draft, okay, that's a different story. I guess I can stash him for upside, but even then, I'm questioning whether I'd rather roster them or a back end running back for the running back upside because I can find a
Yeah.
starting quarterback in waivers. Daniel Jones, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo or something. Like, there's going to be some guys in
Sam
waivers that
Darnold.
I can pick up. Yeah, Sam Darnold that can play. I guess the last player I want to talk about that we were just talking about, Watson. This isn't a fade. I actually think that if Watson, especially given the news and the fact that people are comparing it to the Ben Roethlisberger scenario, if he's there with your very last pick in a fantasy draft, I think he might be worth taking instead of a kicker. And
Mm.
then waiting
Yeah.
until week 1 until we know if he's really suspended or not. To then I'll waiver pick up a kicker. I
I
think
think
that
he's
that might
definitely
be a
worth it.
strat. I mean,
I
maybe
think he's
even like
definitely
with your
worth it.
second to last pick or your third to last pick. Like, dude, I will hold off on the kicker until the beginning of the season. I will take my last pick on the kicker compared to the rest of the league for the upside of Deshaun Watson with the last pick.
Well, I just see it as a can't lose situation because you fill out your roster, and you haven't picked up a quarterback, and then there's just Deshaun sitting there. If he does play and come through, then you got a top 5 fantasy quarterback on top of like a very good roster that you've already filled out. And if he doesn't play, then he doesn't play. Then you just
Yeah, you just
waiver
drop him.
kickers.
Yeah.
You can't lose with that. I think that's honestly one of the best moves.
Well, yeah. This actually wasn't on the menu. Speaking of fading players, like I'm fading kickers in general. Before we move on to the running backs that we're going to fade, I have had wildly more success with just picking up kickers that play against defenses that give up a lot of kicks. So what I do is I'll go to teamrankings.com. I'll link them in the description. Fantastic website for looking at stats. And
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I look at the 3-game moving average. So within the last 3 games, how many kicks is the team giving up? You can look up like opposing defense kick give. I forget exactly what the hell it's called, but you can find it on there. It's on there. And just picking up kickers that play defenses that give up a lot of kicks. You can look at the 3-game moving average. You can look at the average overall. Because it's weird, right? Because usually it's bad defenses that give up a lot of kicks. But also there are good defenses that just stop teams in the red zone that give up field goals and like will give up 3 field goals a game. And that's really all you need for your kicker to have a good week. I think that that's more impactful than trying to either drafting Justin Tucker or trying to figure out who the next boomer bust kicker is going to be. Every year there's a new kicker that goes crazy. Last year it was y'all's kicker, Young Wei
Who?
Koo. The year before it was the Texans kicker, I'm pretty sure, Kaimi Fairbairn, who was just going crazy.
Oh yeah.
It's a 1 in 32 chance. You're literally playing roulette on who you think is going to be the crazy kicker the next year. There's so much variance at the position. I'm wavering kickers. I think you have a better chance of drafting defenses.
Yeah, I've never done that strategy. I'm definitely going to take that strategy into account this year and see how it works for me. Because I said this in the past. I'm always a big Justin Tucker guy because I just like to have my guy. But screw that now, dude. I'll look up the defense that week who gives up the most kicks. Because you're right. You don't know which kicker in the league is going to be that number one guy because it fluctuates every year in year out. Dude, Koo could honestly, he could suck next year. I don't know. He doesn't know. He's been pretty solid, but
well, what if the Falcons just don't?
Go.
What if their red zone offense is just better? I mean, what if their offense is just worse and they don't kick as many balls? I don't know, because I used to be the person to think that I'm smarter than everyone else. I watch all the games, I know this kicker's good, or I listen to special teams guys and they say, "Oh, this kicker's good." Dude, it is a crapshoot. And I instantly started scoring much more from my kicker position I didn't come up with this. I saw a post on, I think it was the Dynasty r/Dynasty subreddit or r/Fantasy Football subreddit, where a guy did this. He just looked at, dude, would you rather have just the good kickers? And he looked at the consensus ADP versus kickers that just play crap defenses, or not crap, because just defenses that give up a lot of kicks. And you scored wildly more points. I started scoring a lot more points and it started being a lot more consistent. I think it's easily the move. And as long as there's 10 kickers on waivers, which there's probably going to be more, you can do this strategy. You may not be able to get the very best one, but you can look at it. Okay, here is the top 5 matchups. I'll pick one of the ones in the top 5, right? A combination of I think this guy is good and the stats show that he's playing up against a good defense. Let's go into the running backs. I think me and you agree pretty hard on the major fade in the first round. That's Austin Ekeler, right? You're a guy that's fading Austin Ekeler.
I mean, people have Ekeler going before Chubb. I'll easily take Chubb over Ekeler any day of the week.
Yeah, I don't hate Austin Ekeler. I thought earlier in the offseason in Dynasty Leagues, he was a pretty good buy. But for some reason, I don't know, maybe because people were just looking at the stats 2 years ago. I don't know what it is. His ADP has gone through the roof, and he has become a consensus top 10 fantasy running back. I don't know what happened, but I think that Austin Ekeler is a lot closer to David Johnson a couple of years ago than he is to a consensus legit top 10 fantasy running back. I understand in PPR leagues, he has the cheat code effect because he gets a lot of receiving, but people really seem to forget that he was in the perfect offense for that to have happen. He was with Phillip Rivers, a guy who has made a living checking the ball down to his running backs. They were in an offense where all of a sudden they didn't have that Melvin Gordon sustainable running back. He fell off a cliff, and oh well, we Austin Eckler's a good back. Like we're just gonna throw the ball a crap ton, and part of our run game is the extension of the run game where we're running a lot of draws, screens, and dump offs with a smart veteran quarterback. I'm not sure he's going to get that receiving volume in this offense. And
I
even if
would
he
be
does,
shocked if
I'm
he
not sure it's
did.
going to be as consistent, you know?
I'd be shocked if he did, just because Herbert has that very talented arm, and they're going to really want to stretch the field with that. Now, saying that, they're definitely going to have some plays evolved where they want to get Austin Eckler the ball in his hands because like he is pretty elusive and can make guys miss and is a good runner of the ball. But like I see like this Chargers offense taking where you're right, where Austin Eckler fit perfect with Phillip Rivers. I think he kind of lacks in this offense because I think they want to take that step forward more like a more versatile offense like a Chiefs, because you have a very talented quarterback with a big arm. So why not try to stretch the field with it?
Yeah, I'm not saying that I hate Austin Eckler. I think he's a
I
good
just don't want to
player.
pick him in the first round. Like
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel
not
like
picking him with a top 8 pick. I think that that has just gone ridiculous. I'd much rather go with one of these more traditional bell cow backs. I'd rather go with Cam Akers, like easily over Austin Eckler. If we're looking at like risky running backs, Derrick Henry easily, like you said, Nick Chubb. I'd rather have because there's the classic rule: you can't win a fantasy league in the first round of your draft, but you sure as hell can lose it. I think that
yeah.
Eckler is one of those guys that I see as far too risky. The risk outweighs the upside where he's at. If he was a second round pick, I'd be much more involved or an early second. Top 8 pick, no shot. Who else are you fading from the running back position?
I feel like this one's a no brainer, but just because like where he is like ranked at is I'm fading Melvin Gordon. The Broncos traded up for Javonte Williams for a
Wait, where is he
reason.
being drafted at? Do you
Dude,
know?
like he's in the same kind of ADP as Mike Davis, and that was going to be my other
Oh,
point.
yikes.
Why wouldn't you just draft Mike Davis? There's Mike Davis is going to be the starting running back and going to get probably like a bulk of the carries. Like the Falcons don't have a second running back. Like and Melvin Gordon, they traded up for Javonte Williams. Like yeah, Javonte Williams might not be the bell cow day one, but I can tell you like mid season or coming down the stretch where like fantasy football is really ramping up and you're getting these playoff stretches, Melvin Gordon won't be there. He's not going to be there. So I wouldn't even draft him. I think he should go undrafted.
All right, the another running back that I'm fading is Miles Gaskin. Simply
Ooh,
because of the fact that I mean his ADP is not bad, but he's in like the actual running back, like he's within the RB2 range, right? You are drafting, he's being drafted in the top 24 in like 90% of leagues. And basically on every person's rankings, he's within the top 24. My problem is that the Dolphins have been looking to bring in a running back actively for like a season and a half. And
mm-hmm.
B, if that happens, Miles Gaskin's value, right, and his perceived outlook
Plummets.
sinks like a rock instantly. And they don't even have to bring in someone all that good, right? If they bring in the washed up Le'Veon Bell, that people think at least he's washed up, instantly you're like, well, crap, is what separates Miles Gaskin from a like an average receiving back in the league? Which not that that's bad. Like him being Naheem Hines wouldn't be terrible. It's just people are
You're
drafting
not
him with the
drafting
upside of
him.
being a number
Yeah.
one running back, whereas I'm not sure that's going to happen.
I feel like he is definitely one of those risky picks, because I thought he played very well last year. And the thing that just bothers me is, like you said, Miami has been looking to upgrade and they just haven't been able to. And it's just a risky pick because, like, if Miles Gaskin goes out there and plays well, then, like, you're chilling. Then you picked him in a good spot and you got a good RB2. But, like, if he's not performing, then, like, the Dolphins aren't going to wait around. Like, let me put it in perspective, like, with Joe Mixon, Joe Mixon's had ton of weeks where he hasn't produced, but yet the Bengals are still he's still going to be their RB1. I feel like it's less with that with Myles Gaskin. The Dolphins would be willing to move on from him if he was like acting more like a Joe Mixon in terms of production, like consistent production.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I just when push comes to shove, all the players around Myles Gaskin, I'd probably rather just take a shot at the receivers or the all the other running backs ranked around him. Um, I feel like it's a little bit of a bait there, and you're playing too much for upside. A lot of the run, like I want upside running backs at the end of the draft, not in the middle and
Mm-hmm.
early in the draft. I think that that's the difference that I have. I would rather have that stable. I know he's going to be RB2 with low RB1 upside instead of taking a guy that could finish RB50 or RB5, right? I have
Yeah,
no like Matt Gaskin to me is one of those RB50, RB5 kind of guys.
he's just a
I'd much
toss up.
rather a stable back that, hey, if I need to start this guy, I can start him. If I want to flex him, hey, I've got a good RB2 in my flex.
I got
Any other
one
running
more.
backs?
I got it. It's more like a question because I was thinking about him. Is James Robinson? Are you fading him or are you still buying him? Because they did draft Travis Etienne, and I know they've been lining up him like a little bit as receiver too. Like, is Travis Etienne's talent just going to be able to take away carries from James Robinson, where it like devalues James Robinson and like his ADP where he's going?
I'm definitely not actively targeting James Robinson. If everyone else is fading him and he falls, like I'll take it. I think that's an offense that's definitely going to try and run the ball more, and they're going to have a more up tempo offense. Um, I don't know. I don't know because right now the whole Jacksonville backfield is weird because I think James Robinson's redraft ADP is RB28 and
Mm-hmm.
Travis Etienne's is like RB34. Both of those just seem really wacky to me. Unless one of those guys, if they're both outside of like the top 30 running backs taken, then I might start to look at them. But I'm not going to be drafting either of those guys above their ADP necessarily.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
think it's
and I'd
he's
rather
in a
have
weird
Etienne
spot.
at RB34 than Robinson at RB28. I think most people would.
Mm-hmm. I agree with
Okay.
that.
I'm going to go real quick through a couple more. I'm fading every single Houston running back in existence. I'm probably fading Najee Harris's ADP. I don't think is all that great. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's great. Who else am I fading? I think that's really it. I think Chris Carson might be a little bit of a bait. Like I think he's good. It's just when are you ever getting a full season out of Chris Carson? That's the only problem. His
Mm-hmm.
ADP is fine though. Like the weeks that you have him, he's great. And I guess to a certain extent, I don't love this fade, but without Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, I'm not sure I can draft him. Like if I was in a high stakes redraft league, I'm not drafting Aaron Jones, and I had a draft like today. I'm not drafting Aaron Jones in the first. No shot. If I'm
Yeah,
in a
that's a
league for
little
like
bit.
a couple $100 on the line, I am not drafting Aaron Jones in the first. And I think you are a fool to do so right now. I like Aaron Jones. I think he's constantly undervalued. Me and you have picked up Aaron Jones in a whole lot of leagues that we do together. Like we mentioned
Yeah,
that other week, we picked him up in our auction league for like $25 and he was the RB2. But part of that is because his work in the passing game is great with Rodgers. Dude, with Rodgers not there, I think the ADP of that entire offense is too high. So I'm out on all the Packers for the time being. I'm just not willing to take the risk.
Packers players are to be determined.
I'm just not doing it. Like, cool, if you draft him as the 10th pick in the draft or the 11th pick in the draft, and he goes out there and he ends up being the RB3 again. Great pick at the end of the first round. Awesome. But I guarantee that he didn't win you the league. But if he goes out there and Aaron Rodgers gets traded, or he just says, no, I'm not playing for the Packers, and all of a sudden Aaron Jones finishes RB 15 on the year, well, you might have just shot yourself in the foot to a certain extent, picking him as like the 8th or 7th running back off the board. And
Yeah.
that might be a pretty optimistic scenario. Like, without
Also,
Rodgers there, what's going to happen to him?
yeah, the Rodgers thing is a big telltale sign for me, like why I would stay away from him right now. But also, he's getting to that point of the running back life where he just got that big contract, and this is where we see some running backs just completely kind of
Yeah.
just deteriorate too as well. And is Aaron Jones going to fall on that list? History proves. I mean,
Well,
he has a good
here's my
chance to.
thing, right? Here's my take on it is that as a pure runner, Aaron Jones, that's not why he is finished high in these leagues. He's an
Mm-hmm.
explosive runner, and he makes explosive plays in the passing game. But without Aaron Rodgers opening the field up, I think that explosiveness that Aaron Jones has is going to really deteriorate. At that point, what separates him as a pure runner from AJ Dillon?
I mean, AJ Dillon came on the scene last year and looked really good.
So the fact that you can even somewhat question that is why I am fading Aaron Jones right now for the time being. Wide receivers. We kind of said it last episode. I am fading every wide receiver ever drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I am not doing it. I would rather have basically like so many running backs over the top 12 receivers or the receivers in the first round. Because I can go and find a receiver that has basically just as good of a chance of putting up the same numbers in the third round. And that guy's usually Calvin Ridley, by the way. So I guess Devontae Adams is the major fade, combined with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. He's a big fade. Basically,
Yeah.
any receiver drafted within the top 15 picks that is even sniffing the top 15 picks in most leagues, unless you have some wacky scoring settings, I am fading them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just not a big again, I get the bulk of my receivers in those mid rounds. There's just a lot of quality guys out there that can get you a nice 15, 18 points. I don't have to have, a D hop or and the same thing goes with Devontae with Aaron Jones. Like we don't know until Aaron
But
Rodgers makes a
even D
decision.
Hop, like D Hop right now is like the 4th or 5th wide receiver off the board. I don't hate picking up D Hop, but it's like I see AJ Brown will sneak into like that very tippy top. Devontae Adams, those guys, no for me, big no. I guess like you can go ahead and say whoever you want. I'm going to say one more guy real quick is T Higgins. I think T Higgins is a good play,
Mm,
right? Good talent. But I hate that coaching staff. And he is being
yeah.
drafted as if he's going to put up like a good 1,100 yards, like pretty solid.
Really?
I would much
Oof.
rather, like, the fact that I
I
have
take Tyler Boyd.
well, yeah, you have Tyler Boyd there, now Jamar Chase. Like, but I think I might rather have Jarvis Landry than him. And the fact that I'm questioning that, I'd much rather just wait, pick up Landry, take a tight end or a running back at the pick that I pick up T Higgins.
Mm-hmm. I see that. So I was looking at it, guys, that I would fade. I'm going to. I'm fading Kenny Galladay. I don't. I know he just signed with the G-men, and everybody's thinking some good luck. Again, it comes down to quarterback play. You got to trust Daniel Jones. I still don't know if Daniel Jones is the guy or not. Also, it seems like the receiving room has gotten a little crowded, and also like Galladay's got to play a full season for me to believe in him. Like, yeah, he has some great talent, and he makes some unbelievable catches, but it always just seems like he's on the sideline hurt. I see a lot of people are like getting kind of high on him. I'm going to, you can have Galladay. I'll find somewhere else that's more reliable.
Okay, I'm gonna list a couple of guys that I'm fading here. First off, I am fading DJ Chark. It seems there's a big rift in the world of do you think DJ Chark is legit a number one receiver or do you think he sucks? I guess I'm in the camp that I don't think he sucks, but it's just I don't think he's going to be consistent enough. So I'm fading
Mm.
him. And then this is kind of like a combo fade here. I am fading the receiving rooms that people think there's value, right? And this is specifically for redraft because I actually think that there could be value in dynasty, but I don't think these guys are going to be consistent enough for me to really believe in redraft. And that's mainly the Detroit and um, what are they? The Indianapolis Colts receiving rooms. Outside of like one or two players, which is mainly Paris Campbell, and then the guys that you can really pick up for free. What's that one dude's name on the Colts? He's pretty good. He's like
Pittman?
the no, not Pittman. I'm fading Pittman. Pittman, and I'm kind of fading Hilton to a certain extent too. It's the fourth guy on the Colts because I like him. But you can get him for free. That's why I like him. Let me look up their
I'm
depth
not
chart here.
sure. I can't remember his name.
But all the Lions receivers, there are a lot of people I see on Twitter and just kind of on the random Reddit threads that are like, oh well, someone's got to catch the ball. But I think if there's
No, you
anything that
don't.
I've learned in fantasy football, there are offenses that produce zero viable players to a certain extent. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand that that's a weird concept to grasp because, yeah, someone has to catch the ball. But a lot of the times it's the whole team, right? There's no one really consistent enough. There are offenses that will have like 5 times as many fantasy relevant players as other offenses. And generally speaking,
Rams are
I don't
always
want
like that.
teams. I just don't want players on bad teams. And I don't think the Colts are a bad team. It's just, I look at it. They have 2 running backs that I think are going to produce. They have like a committee of like 3 tight ends that are going to take up targets. And the guys that I want to pick them up for free, which is basically
Mm-hmm.
Paris Campbell. And I got to look up their depth chart. But I don't want to pay an actual price for receivers on a bad team. And I think that's definitely apparent in Detroit. What's this? Zach Pascal. I think Pascal is pretty good
Oh yeah, Pascal. That's interesting. Yeah,
because you can
Pascal's
pick
good.
him up for. He reminds me a little bit of oh my god, I can't remember any names right now. That Broncos guy from last year, Tim Patrick. I think he could be a little cheeky Tim Patrick, where everyone hates him, but he give you like a bunch of weeks at 10+ points.
Dude? I don't like. I'm trying to think of the Lions' receiving room right now.
So they have, and these guys might get drafted at the end, and more so than the very end. So you have Brashad Perryman, Tyro Williams. Those 2 guys in particular, I am fading. Amon-Ra St. Brown might be drafted around there. I'm probably not picking him at his ADP either. The only guy that I really want from this offense is Quintez Cephas at the receiver position. Khalif Raymond, I'll let him sit on waivers until he actually does something.
Mm-mm.
Amon-Ra, I don't think is a terrible pickup because I think he could do something. But Quintez Cephas is the only dude from that receiving room that I want. I think the other guys, it's a bait. I just think they're going to be too inconsistent. They may have games where, yeah, they are the guys catching the ball, but part of the receiver position that you need is consistency because I don't want one of those dudes that's going to go 2 points, 10 points, 2 points, 2 points, 15 points, especially when they're on a bad offense. No, sir, I'm out.
Yeah, that just sounds like Rashad Perryman right there. You know, and if you're putting trust into him, like your season's probably chalked right away.
Who else are you fading? Oh, I'll go for some more. I'm fading Jalen Waddle. I do not want Jalen Waddle in redraft leagues, especially. Um, who
What
else
about
am I fading?
Kadarius Toney?
Probably not picking him up either. I think that he has a little bit too much work to do from like a route running and developmental perspective. I think he's just going to be too inconsistent. I am fading the Chiefs wide receiver too. I don't care who it is, whether it's Mecole Hardman, Cornell Powell. That is a huge bait to spend draft capital picking up the Chiefs' third option. I do not think it's going to be consistent. I think it's going to be wildly overrated. Who else?
What do you think about Chris Godwin Now that AB is going to have a full offseason, and we've seen Tom Brady loves AB.
I've never really been a huge Chris Godwin guy, mainly because I think his ADP now is probably better. I really don't know what it is, but I know last year, and you have a lot of people thinking that he's a top 15 guy. I am not drafting him as a top 15 guy. I do not think he's there. I think he's much closer to like those Steelers receivers, like a Deontay Johnson, at least for my rankings ADP, where he's like, okay, you can pick him him at receiver like 19, 20 to like wide receiver 22. I think that's much
Mhm.
better than picking him up as a top 15 guy.
Also, I like that's why because Deontay is one of the guys that I'm really trying to get and buy in my draft, but that's why I'm kind of fading Juju a little bit because I think Deontay is just going to be the end up number one receiver in the offense.
Yeah, the Steelers receivers are wacky just because they're going to be inconsistent. But the one thing, too, though, about so here's the thing with inconsistent receivers that I didn't really establish and I should have earlier with the Lions. If you're gonna like inconsistent receivers aren't terrible, but if you're gonna be inconsistent, you want to have that super high ceiling where you can put up 30 points, right? I don't want an inconsistent receiver ceiling to be 15 points because
Hmm.
why? What's the point? But if I have an inconsistent receiver whose ceiling is 30 points, all of a sudden that they can win me weeks and they can win me games, and I'm willing to at least spend some sort of pick on that. Whereas if you're inconsistent and your ceiling is 15, dude, I want no part of you. I'm trying to think of what other receivers that I am actively fading. I think that's really it. Um,
Maybe Tyler Lockett.
no, I don't hate Tyler Lockett. I don't know. I don't really know what his ADP is in redraft leagues, but in dynasty leagues, I think he's a great buy. I know that's not really the conversation, but yeah, I'm not picking
Hmm.
Tyler Lockett probably as like a top 24 guy. If he's there, I guess I'll fade him. Other than that, I think that's really it. You got any guys left that you want to fade?
I'm just looking at the list. No, I pretty much said my guys. I'm kind of out on.
Maybe Henry Ruggs, but even then, it's like his ADP is really not that high. So, what are you fading at that point? Let's
Yeah.
move on to tight ends. Tight
Mm.
ends. I am fading all of what we like to call in the Dynasty Pod the Waste Lords. And what that means is you are one of those dudes that is like your tight end 11, tight end 12, tight end 9, and everyone's like, oh, they have so much upside. I'll start listing them off. Irv Smith,
Yeah.
Troutman. I got to look at a list of tight ends here. But all those dudes, I have like the top 8, and the other tight ends that I actually believe in are Robert Tonyan, especially if Aaron Rodgers plays. Like, here's the difference between him and the other Packers guys: is the other Packers guys, you're drafting them as if Rodgers is there. Robert Tonyan, what? He's like tight end 10, so he's one of the last tight ends getting picked anyway. You're draft like Aaron Rodgers not being there is priced into Robert Tonyan. And even if he's not there, I think he could be good because I actually like what Robert Tonyan showed up on tape. I understand the whole TD regression crap, but I think that his role could easily be expanded. Whereas the other dudes, they're being drafted as if everything's going to be all willy nilly and continue on as usual. So Irv Smith heavily fading because I think he's being drafted as a top 10
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. I think he's the big number one guy.
Um, let's see, tight end rankings. You got any tight ends you're fading in particular?
Gesicki comes to mind for me off the bat. I'm not placing too much trust in this Dolphins offense yet. There's a lot of moving parts going on. And I still don't know what I'm going to get out of Tua. Like, Gesicki's, like, very athletic and could be good. It's just, if people are expecting him to be a top 10 tight end, I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to fade Tyler Higbee. I'd just much rather sack up and take a tight end a round or two earlier to get one of the actual guys. Hunter Henry, I'm out. Evan Ingram, it's hard to even because Evan Ingram, like the upside is there. The Cowboys tight ends want no part of. Jared Cook, I don't want. Hayden Hurst, if you're even drafting him for some reason, nope.
Yeah.
Buffalo's tight ends, don't want them. The Cleveland tight ends, I think it's just too much of a crapshoot. Don't want them. I mean, other than that, it's like, dude, none of these guys are really drafting. I don't know. For me, I think like I'd rather just draft one of the good tight ends. I'd rather just spend a high quality draft pick on the tight ends. I mean, we said it in the players to target. It's like the two positions I seem to want to target are tight ends and running backs. Everything else is the ones that I'll fade and wait on.
What about Kyle Pitts?
No, I like Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts could be good. His ADP is a little high. I think it's in like the fourth round generally. So like if I can wait and pick up TJ Hawkinson, then I think that's a little bit better. But I don't hate Kyle Pitts. Or like Dallas Goedert or Mark Andrews. Like I think that those guys are all pretty similar. Kyle Pitts is good upside though. I'm not fading Kyle Pitts. I like Kyle Pitts.
Where's Logan Thomas projected? What's his ADP?
He's like around somewhere between 9 to 12. Like one of those. If you miss out on all the tight ends, he's there. I actually kind of like Logan Thomas. I don't think he's bad. He's
Well,
the
didn't
kind of
he end
guy
up
he's been
as the third
rapidly
tight end
improving.
last year?
Yeah, I don't. I see a lot of Logan Thomas hate, dude. When I watched that Washington football team like progressively throughout the year, I didn't watch all their games, but I watched like a good 4 or 5 games back when they're all 22, and I watched them beat my Steelers on prime time. Logan Thomas was good, like he was
Yeah,
better than your average tight end, and people do not want to admit it. So now I'm more of a buyer of Logan Thomas than a fader.
I like
I think
that.
that's really it for me for the tight ends.
Yeah, because it's just such a drop off after you get past like your elite guys.
I see the top 8 tight ends. I like all these guys. I like Kelsey. I like Kittle. I like Waller. I like Andrews. I like Hawkinson. I like Goddard. I like Fant, and I like Pitts. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
fading any of those guys. I will gladly take all 8 of those players at their ADP. All right, let's get into the next segment. Last segment of the day, probably. Top 10 defenses. We've been kind of scattering in some top 10s here and there. We did a lot of the offensive positions. We did the offensive line. But let's do the defenses. We reacted to a top 10 safeties, but we're doing defenses as a whole. And I will tell you what, this is a tough list to make.
Yeah, it is.
There are a lot of pretty damn good defenses. It's even hard to like pick who the best one is because there are a couple defenses that I really like. But I kind of have like a top 2 defenses in the league right now for me, through and through. And my number 1 defense is the number 1 defense from last year. That's the Los Angeles Rams. Simply because I think this is the most complete defense in the league. They have the pass rushers. They have great corners. And man, it's just you watch this defense and they're just all over the field. They really don't have a glaring weakness. It's really tough to attack them. I understand they lost Brandon Staley to DC, but I'll still take the Rams as the number 1 defense.
Yeah, they're my number 2 actually, but number 1 for me is the football team.
That's my
I
number
can't.
2. So we just swapped those 2.
Yeah, you can't get over it. The fact that they have Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, all on the same team, and they just drafted Jamin Davis, and
Yeah.
they got William Jackson to replace Darby at the corner position, who I think William Jackson is a underrated corner. This team is. You saw what Ron Rivera was able to do with this defense last year. They flew all around the ball. They were all over the field. Yeah, I still think they're the number 1 facto best D in my opinion.
Yeah, so we just had our number 1 and number 2 flopped. Yeah, to me, there are 2 defenses that I think are just above the rest. That second one for me was the Washington football team for a lot of reasons you mentioned, and to me, they only got better. Number 3 defense, in my opinion. I'm curious to hear you have at number 3. I put the New Orleans Saints for a couple of reasons. I understand that they were kind of in a cap hell. They lost Trey Hendrickson, and there's a couple moving pieces on their defense. But that secondary is insane. And not only that, their play style is one of the, that physical, up in your face press man really helps out come later in the season when the refs start letting you play a little bit more in the playoffs. They start letting you get away with a little bit more contact. To me, the Saints fit the exact type of defense that you want when you're making a playoff run, and the exact type of defense that, hey, if I need to shut down one of these top teams in the league, we have a bunch of guys that we can match up across the board on your receivers, and we still have a good pass rush and good linebackers.
I think it's funny that you brought up getting away with contact with the Saints, and especially in playoff form, because the Saints definitely, the Rams definitely got away with contact in
they did.
that NFC Championship. Saints are in my top 10, but at 3, I got the defending champs. I got the Bucks. They brought everybody back. You saw that defense really take on shape during that playoff run. Devin White looked like, one of the best linebackers in the league. You bring back JPP, Shaq Barrett. 2 years ago he was a sack leader, and last year during the playoff run was just. I mean, ask Aaron Rodgers about him, and I'm sure he's still having nightmares. They got Winfield in his second year. He was really impressive as a rookie. They pick up dude from Washington.
Joe Tyrone.
Joe Tyrone.
Yeah, good little pass rusher there at the end of the first.
Yeah, just to add depth. Vita Vea is still there. Like,
beast.
I mean, all you have to do, you don't even have to look up the 2021 depth chart on this defense. You can look up the 2020. I mean, I just think, with this Todd Bowles defense in their second year and this group coming back, they're easily my number 3.
Yeah, so my 4, 5, and 6, these are defenses. I really struggled to place these guys in a particular order. I think that they're all very close, especially even close with the Saints. I'm just going to rattle them off. It's Steelers, Ravens, and Bucks. You mentioned the Bucks, obviously for clear reasons. I'm a little bit lower on the Bucks than you, mainly because I think that they were a defense that was just hot. They were healthy. So I think that they'll run into a little bit more issues this year. But regardless, that defense is still sick, and they have a sick pass rush. And then the Steelers and Ravens. These are two well-coached teams, two teams that, yeah, they lose guys every year. But if I'm going to pick two organizations to replace, lost pieces, it's the Steelers and Ravens. They do it every year. These are two teams that you will be hard-pressed to find years where they're not putting up top 10 defense on the field. They both have studs on both sides of the ball. To me, TJ Watt, if I'm betting on Defensive Player of the Year, he's my bet. The Ravens, they have stud players. They have a great secondary led by one of my favorite defensive players in the league, actually, which is surprising to hear from a Steelers fan, and Marlon Humphrey. Dude's a beast. Yeah, those two defenses I have right around the top 5 with the Bucks.
Steelers are at 4 for me as well. People are going to say the loss of Bud Dupree hurts, but you got Alex Highsmith stepped in.
Underrated. He's a good little player.
I thought he did really well. Also, people are still sleeping on him, and I don't know how he fell to the 6th round to y'all, but Quincy Roche, I can see that dude coming in making an immediate impact as a guy to take over that position.
Good Senior Bowl. I really I like you. I was really surprised to see him go into the 6th, especially as a pass rusher, right? Any pass rushers that kind of have a glimpse of hope, you usually expect to go a little bit earlier. To me, what was that kid from South Carolina we liked that went to the Vikings? He had a pretty decent year.
DJ Wanham.
Yeah, DJ. To me, I think that he's a DJ Wanham.
I think he's better because DJ Wanham
he's like a pass rush specialist, really. He's a little too small to play all 3 downs. Quincy Roche, I think, has the potential to be that like all 3 down kind of outside backer pass rusher type.
Yeah, I think DJ Wanham's more of he's suited for more of a rotational kind of piece, he'll start some games, but I definitely get that feel with Quincy Roche, who can play every down, hand in the dirt, no problem. Number 5 for me, I couldn't go a podcast without jerking them off, is the Browns. Um, I think they have one of the most versatile defenses in the league. Because like, you look at like who they all. I almost said we. But you pick up John Johnson, you get back Grant Dilpitt, who didn't even play last year. You drafted Greg Newsome to go alongside Denzel Ward, and you have Greedy Williams. Where secondary was your problem last year, it's no longer a problem. It's a strong suit for you. Also, you talk about Aaron Donald, best pass rusher in the league. Miles Garrett is, number 2 or number 3. He's right there. And also, I just kind of like their signings. They're taking, I think this low risk for him, but could be high reward in guys like Jadeveon Clowney and Takk McKinley. I know I've slandered a little bit of Takk McKinley, and he's deserved it. But now, if you get him in a position where he can really find himself out, and he's lining up Miles Garrett, first round talent, and alongside of Clowney is good. They also bring in a guy like Malik Jackson, and we got
That
to
was a
remember,
phenomenal signing. I thought Malik Jackson was one of the most underrated interior D linemen in the league.
yeah. And then Owusu Koromoto just falls to their lap in the second round. Uh, from every single level of this defense, I just think they're going to be a top 5 unit. That's why I have them at 5. And I think it'll show. Now, everybody's got to stay healthy, and I hope they do, because I think it'd be a fun little squad to watch. But I think the Browns deserve, heading into 2021, definitely being in my top 5. At 6, I got the Dolphins. The Dolphins' defense last year was created so many points off these turnovers and really helped. And really, when the offense, wasn't very potent and very powerful. And the reason why the Dolphins ended up going 10-6 was because of how playmaking this defense really is. And I still think the Dolphins deserve to be in the top 10. I got them at 6. They picked up one of my favorite pass rushers in the draft, Jalen Phillips. I'm pretty sure he was the first pass rusher to go. And then they pick up Javon Holland later in the draft too. So I think with most of that unit coming back as well, I think they're a top 10 unit coming into next year.
Yeah, I've got the Dolphins at 7. The one thing that concerned me, though, is the Dolphins towards the end of last season started to get carved up a little bit. But because of how good they were, they add a lot of talent. I'm going to put them at 7. To me, after 6 with the Bucks, Steelers, or Ravens, right? To me, 7 and beyond is where we start getting to good. They have good defenses, good talent. They showed a lot last year, but they got some question marks. At 8 for me is the Patriots. You just can't not put this team on there, especially with how much they improved their front 7. That was the big problem
Yeah.
last year. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not they retain Gilmore, because I saw, he wants that contract extension. It's not happening. Maybe he holds out. Maybe they trade him. That's going to be interesting. I still think, though, that with Bill Belichick at the helm, with all that talent that they get back from opt-outs and that they added in free agency, they were splashing cash to add in Godchow and Matt Judon. I really think that we're going to see a Patriots defense that's really back towards the top tier, and 8 might be a little bit too low for them, or too high, wherever you want to put it, right? They definitely could be higher.
Yeah, I had the Patriots at 8. I had the Ravens at 7, Patriots at 8. I wanted to put the Patriots a little higher up.
You just kind of have to see it to believe it with the Patriots.
Yeah, I just think that, with Hightower coming back, that's going to play pivotal. They get Kyle Van Noy back. I think this is
Big
going to
pickup
be
at linebacker there.
Yeah, I think this is going to be, at least the front 7 is going to be pretty scary team to face. That being said, at 9, this is tough for me. I went Colts at 9.
Same.
Okay, and then at 10, I had the Saints rounding it out.
Okay, so Colts, underrated group, and then they pick up who did they picked up? They went defense in the first round. Who did they pick up? That's blanking on me.
Quiddy Pie?
Yeah,
Is
they
it
picked
Quiddy
up
Pie?
Paya. Yep, I thought that was a great value pick for him for a pass rusher. There's another defense that they kind of are pretty damn good on all three phases. They were phenomenal against the pass last year, and obviously Darius Leonard, one of the top, if not the top linebacker in the entire league. For me at 10, Steed had the Saints. I went out and I had the Giants. This is a group last year that played phenomenally well. Their secondary seems really, really legit. Uh, man, I really feel like the Giants at 10. You can argue that this is too low for them. Um, I
I
really
wanted to
like
put the
this
G-Men
group,
in there.
and
You know,
they had that D tackle that they picked up from the Jets.
oh, Leonard Williams.
Yeah, Leonard Williams. You finally got a Leonard Williams. It's like, okay, this is the high end first round pick that we wanted. We finally saw him put it together. They're they were kind of just like a pass rusher away, and now you pick up Azeez Ojulari, who a lot of people had as a first round pick. If he's able to be a top end pass rusher for this team and get to the quarterback consistently, dude, this Giants team has all the pieces and an absolutely loaded secondary to play with.
Also, they drafted in the third round a corner I liked out of UCF, Aaron Robinson, to go
Yeah,
along with
slot corner,
Bradbury.
good little slot
I
corner.
think I think that could be pretty good. But yeah, like Leonard Williams did really find himself a home in well, I say New York. He was already in New York, but with the Giants
Mm-hmm.
in the other side of the conference. But you know, you line up Azeez Ojulari could be an X factor for him because he is just so athletic, and he was always really good at getting to the quarterback in UGA. So I tried to put the G-men in there. I really did. I noticed you don't have the Browns in there.
No,
But,
so I have a couple honorable mentions. Uh, three in particular, with two like I don't think many people are going to have in their top 10, and they have like too many question marks for me to throw them in there. My three legit honorable mentions, one is the Browns, right? Because they had so many additions, but I need to see it to believe it for that squad with so many moving pieces in there. They definitely have the talent, but I want to see it. Um, the next one is the Bears. The Bears last
mm,
year definitely had a top 10 defense, but
yeah.
the fact that you replace they switch
Fuller.
corners. Yeah, you lost Fuller, and now you pick up Desmond Trufant to replace him. Obviously, that number one spot is going to be Jalen Johnson, a guy that I really like, but I'm really not sure that I love Jalen Johnson. He was one of my favorite corners last year, but I'm not sure he's really ready to be a number one corner in the league. And I mean, you saw the Bears; they get carved up by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Now you lose Fuller and have to rely on Jalen Johnson. I don't really know if that's a recipe for success. To me, the Bears are a defense that is trending down, not trending up. And then the last one, in like the legit honorable mentions, is the 49ers. And man, you just can't deny that pass rush, Fred Warner. They still have some good pieces in the secondary. Last year, they were an injured group and they lose their DC, but this could easily be a group that we see go back to more of a 2019 49ers defense than the defense that they fielded last year.
Yeah. Another honorable mention I think is the Broncos for me. You know, their secondaries. They pick up Kyle Fuller and Ron Darby, and along they drafted Patrick Surtain,
Yeah.
and they have Justin Simmons. So like you would think that's going to be a pretty top notch secondary group. Also, Von Miller, I don't really know his whole story. I know he might be in a little bit of trouble, but just thinking ahead, like if he's back, that's definitely a presence there. Also, who else is their pass rusher? They have it.
Bradley
Why am
Chubb.
I? Yeah, Bradley Chubb. I wanted to say Chuba Howard, and I was like, that's just the wrong Chubb. But yeah, Bradley Chubb, he's been pretty. I think they would be like somewhere around this top 15 mix. And of course, they have Fangio too, who always
Yeah.
assembles a very good defense.
The other thing, because I have the Broncos, I have like another three teams that are kind of in that lower tier dark horsey. Dude, they pick up Baron Browning, Caden Sturds, and Jamar Johnson in round and with their third round pick and two fifth round picks, who I think are all pretty nice upside, good value picks for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Browning should have an immediate impact, I think, at that linebacker spot for him. And Caden Stearns and Jamar Johnson are two guys at safety I kind of liked coming in. So, dude, I agree with you. This Broncos defense could be really legit, and they're well coached. Other two, hold on,
Yeah,
I
go
want to say
ahead.
these honorable mentions. One is the Cardinals. I think the reason why the Cardinals are left out of the top 10 is because they have to replace both of their starting corner spots, which is
Yeah,
going
that's
to be
tough.
interesting to do. That was a big reason why this defense was good last year. But their front seven is legit. And just, they're a well coached team, a well coached defense. And, like, dude, last year, people don't want to admit they were a top 10 defense last year, probably. If you were to look at it for how they played and how they carried some of the games for that Cardinals team. And the last one is a defense that I've always liked, and I think it's just been trending way up. That's the Panthers. As a team,
Of
they had a
course.
young defense. Clearly, they're like they're a dark horse pick, but they pick up our favorite corner in the draft in J.C. Horn. Dude, if they
Mm-hmm.
find that lockdown corner with guys like Browning and some of the other talent on their defense, they could easily ascend into being one of the best young groups, if not the best young defense in the league.
All they need is Kuechly to come back.
Yeah.
Another dark horse that I think defense that could easily flip the script from where they were last year is the Vikings for me. I would find it hard for Mike Zimmer to have another horrible defensive year like he had last year with a young squad. But, those guys get older, but they do get a guy like Xavier Woods. They got Patrick Peterson to help out Drake, get Kirkpatrick. They drafted Chaz Surratt, who I love, Patrick Jones. And then, if you're able to get Anthony Barr and Daniil Hunter both back healthy with the onslaught of third round picks they've had the last 2 years to really fuel up this defense, I could see this defense making ground where they were one of the worst defenses last year in the NFL to being back into that little top 15 talk.
Yeah, part of the reason why the Vikings numbers were so bad last year, if you remember, is that their offense couldn't do anything like the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. They would
Mm-hmm.
turn the ball over. They had a lower average time of possession per game than the Jets for like the first half of last year, which is just goes to show you. I mean, the Jets, they scored the first drive and punted and threw picks every other possession. We can all just assume, and we saw at the end of last year, that the Vikings offense finally started picking up and put it together. The Vikings through the draft, they had a plethora of draft picks, so we hopefully, and then they added a lot of draft picks the past 2 years, so hopefully a lot of these guys improve and start to get on their way and develop. I agree with you. I'm not as high on the Vikings defense as you are, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that group really take a step forward from last year.
Well, you would just hope with the amount of draft picks they've spent on this defense that, a couple of them have to hit. So,
Exactly, and that's kind of their strategy, right? They just hoard draft picks and they draft so many guys. I mean, eventually they're going to have a ton of depth, and a lot of these guys are going to hit. I like the way that they've been building their football team. They've drafted a lot of guys that I personally like. So I think that it will pay dividends, especially we'll see it this year. But that's going to do it from us. That's going to be the end of the episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It's free and it really helps us out. We'd really appreciate it. But thank you so much and peace out.